All right. Good evening, everyone. So this is the Hope session for September 22nd. So this one tonight is part 2 of 7 steps to a personal budget. So part 1 was September 8th, where we looked at the steps to building a budget. Now we're going to go through optimizing a budget. So I'm Tyler Wayne, founder of Hope Financial Solutions. So I started this business about a year ago, September last year officially. Kind of was doing it part-time, and then this June I moved and I've been working full-time in the business. And you see down here all my the ways you can reach me. So email, website, you can book a virtual consult through there. The YouTube channel, so that's the shortened link, but if you go to YouTube and search Hope Financial Solutions, put all my content, including this session, will be up there, and other ones if you miss September 8th. And then Facebook, my personal one is Tyler Wayne, but that Tyler Wayne for Hope business tag, so you can catch everything there. So thanks for coming out tonight, and we will get going. So just briefly, I know everyone here has been on other meetings. So for those that are watching the recording, you can read some of the details of a bit about me. But just for those in attendance, I'm just going to share a little funny story. So today I had to have the cleaning come because my son, who's now just under 18 months, a month ago, we have an apple tree out front that he loves to pick, and he decided to come in the door and pull the vent up in the house and drop the apple down into the floor vent. And it rolled about 8 feet away, so I could not reach it. And so luckily we did need to have the duct cleaning done at some point, but I ended up having the duct cleaners come. And when we moved in, we had it done, and it was about $250, $300. So I was hoping for that. Well, the best quote I could get was $520. Now, it was a good company. They did a good job, and it's just part of the inflation and all that. But I share this partly because it's funny and partly because life happens. And so I had a bit of a fund set aside, the emergency fund or house fund, because things like this happen. So needless to say, we're watching him more closely, because the worst part was I saw him with the apple and I saw him pull the vent and look at me, and I said, no, no. And then he dropped it in and had a good laugh. So yeah, but we survived. So our air is clean and fresh and all set. And so we should be good for another few years. So that's a bit of my bio and a little story of my adventure today. So the joys of home ownership. So as mentioned, we'll be looking at optimizing your budget. So when we have questions after, I'll take you through so step 5, 6, and 7 of the personal budget, the 7 steps, as well as a recap. And then we'll have questions after. And if you've done building your budget, feel free to ask specific questions tailored to your budget, and we can talk about some ideas where you may be able to optimize it. Ultimately, what this is about is, if you tuned into the last session, you would have heard I said you have to look at the facts, look at the real picture, right? So if you look at the real picture and you realize, uh-oh, I'm spending more than I should be, or I'm not saving for goals, you need to find ways to optimize your budget so that you align it to what you want. And so that's the main theme tonight. So I started it off last week, or September 8th, last session, with getting real and looking at the detail. The overarching theme tonight is, what do I want? So think about, as you go through this, what do you want in life? At the end of the day, your budget and your goals will be different from everyone else's here, including mine. So unless you know what you want, so for me, I want more time with my family, and I wanted to get away from a 9-to-5 type job. That necessitates, in time, I can build and create more income with my business, but for the short term, it means not having as much and less guaranteed. So that's a trade-off I'm making, less guaranteed. I don't have the weekly paycheck or biweekly. So it's a trade-off I made. And it also means maybe a fallback. We don't have as big a house because we don't really need it, and we're happy, and we're looking to move out to the country where we have more land and space, and we can do our own gardening and have space for our son. So once again, with that in mind, I can then tailor my financial plan to how do I want to live my life. So as we move through that, I would strongly encourage you, think about, what do you want out of life? What's your goal? If you want kids, you're gonna have to plan for more expenses. It's just the nature. If you want to retire early, you're gonna have to save more upfront. So think about what you want. So step 5 in the 7-step process is optimizing your budget. So the best way, and this is the question, really, you need to make this a mindset. And the question that you need to always ask is there a better way? So how can I save money? So, and then, or that's on the expense side, how can I save money? On the other side, how can I earn more money? Right? So how can I save money? Can I get the same while paying less? Can I get more while paying the same? Both of those will translate to savings, because if you get more of something while paying the same amount, you're not going to have to pay it as frequently. How can I earn more money? Do you have a passion or a hobby that you like, and you can create some side income from that? If you're running a business, are there factors that are wasting money? Are there things that you can do maybe to get more revenue, raising your fees, or like if you have advertising that's not working, or subscriptions that you aren't using, cut those, right? So that's a bit of expense and income. But look at both sides and always ask, is there a better way? And I would strongly encourage you, don't say, oh, that's only $10. Oh, that's only $20. Because what if it's $20 every month? Right? That's $240 in a year. That can add up, right? And you're creating a mindset. It's all about a mindset of, is this the right thing? Right? And now for your budget and your situation, the way you can approach this is, what was the biggest surprise? So you went through, you did your budget, and you're looking at your expenses that you spend. What was one of those aha moments where you said, I'm spending that much? Really? I'm spending that much on that? Look at that, because that means the fact that you realize, uh-oh, I'm spending more than I thought. That means it's not aligned with your goals. The value you placed on that, you're right away, your intuition is telling you it's not worth that much money. So look at it, right? And start to make a conscious choice. Okay, so that's how you can start to optimize your budget. So go through your budget and look for areas where you're spending more than you expected, and think about, how can I do it a better way? And there's a lot of opportunities in different areas to look at. So I actually put a poll out on LinkedIn. This was last week. So polled a number of people, 14 responded. This is spread throughout the world, US, a bit in Canada, and Europe, UK. But the number one concern for people is their shelter. So rent and mortgage, which, as we know, interest rates are rising and house prices have been rising. So not surprised to see that. Utilities and food were a close second, tied for second. So pretty well across the board. But if we hit rate first off on shelter and utilities, the key here is a lot of this is fixed, right? So if you buy a house, you're buying a mortgage, and the utilities by and large are set with that, where you've bought that house. Like, the cost to heat a 5-bedroom home isn't going to change dramatically. You can, I wouldn't encourage you, or I wouldn't say, if you go from 21 degrees that you keep at Celsius down to 20, you'll get a bit of savings. But for any marginal large impact, you're not going to get as much savings. So when you look, and that's where what do you want out of life, you got to think, where do I want to live? I'll share a link with you and I'll post it in the comments when I post this recording. It's actually lessons learned from the Great Depression. And the example that they had used there was everybody was living in the Midwest, but it started to fold and they moved where there's work, right? So moving your location is a very valid way to look at avoiding or reducing the shelter and utilities cost. And I'm saying right now, the fact that more companies are moving towards remote working is a huge advantage for this. I'm very interested to see over time how the pendulum swings back. But right now, a lot of people, so I'm about an hour and 3/4 southwest of Toronto, as I mentioned on the bio. And our area has been fairly hot because people are actually, they can move from the city out to here. And if they only have to commute 1 day a week into the office, it's worth it. And the quality of life is better. There's less traffic. It's easier for the kids. There's more space. So I'm just saying, think about what you want out of life, and you may, for shelter and utilities, you may want to look at moving to a different location if it's really strapping you. The rule of thumb for shelter and utilities has always been 30% of income. Just about every budget I do now, people are doing more than it's costing more than that. It's just the nature of house prices and utilities now with gas prices. But that's kind of the rule of thumb. 30% of your income should be going to shelter and utilities, the four walls, if you will. So one thing I would say is for utilities, like I mentioned, you can look at conserving where you can. So whether it's using less water, like doing your laundry or hanging it out to dry instead of using the dryer. But be careful if you're going to say like, oh, I'm going to replace all the windows to save hydro. Just do the math, put in the work, because replacing all your windows in your house is probably going to cost you 15 grand, depending on the size of the house. That's a lot of savings you have to get to pay it off. So if you're trying to generate savings and generate cash, just be careful and make sure you look at the quote unquote business case. Don't just do it because of a few tweaks here and there. And then finally, just touching on food, the areas to look if you're eating out a lot or like buying takeout, right away when you do that, taxes go on top and usually a tip. So you're generally adding 30% right away. And with food costs going up, it's 30% on top of those higher food costs. So really look at those areas first. Yeah, I would say to like cooking, dining in is good, and connecting as much as you can with local providers, cutting out the middleman. That's the way to go. And at least where I am in Canada, food, a very good indication of the quality of food you're getting is how much HST is being charged on it, or tax. If you're buying essentials, they don't get taxed, right? But if right away, if I buy the same meal from a takeout, it's now a service, so it does get taxed, right? But if I'm buying vegetables and meats and like milk or good quality food, it won't get taxed. And so you're saving 13% right there. And that's all the more reason why eating out is pricey. I'm kind of I've got the hang of what's there and not, but when I was kind of, I think at university more, I would always look at my receipt and I would see how much HST was I charged, because I would know then how much junk, quote unquote, junk food I'm getting. If it's a higher amount, it's you're getting taxed on the junk. So just a helpful little tip there. So in any case, think about where you want to be. And I would just add, if your mortgage is variable, I mean, rates have kind of gone up a lot right now, but if you were, I tend to lean more towards a fixed rate. just because it's certain and but I do like the prepayment options because you can pay money to the principal. But that is something you can look at without having to move, is what mortgage product do you have? And generally, using a mortgage broker is well worth it. It's no cost to you, and they know who's out there, and you want to find a good independent mortgage broker. Okay, so that was just a quick little drill in on how to optimize your budget and find savings. So now step 6. So step 5, you've gone through your budget and you've looked for all the areas where you're spending more and how you can do things better, how you can squeeze some money out of there. Step 6 is tie your savings plan to your budget. So first off, after doing step 5, you have to look, the first point in this is spend less than you make. If you're not spending less than you're bringing in, you will never be able to save or hit any of your long-term goals. You're just going to continue to drive up debt. I know that sounds tough, but that's the reality. If you're spending less than you make, you will have a surplus you can save. If you are spending more than you make, you will drive up debt. It's just the facts. It's the numbers, right? So make sure that as you look to optimize, you're keeping that long-term in mind. So if you're eating out at restaurants once a week, think about it. Is my long-term goal of retiring early, is that higher on the list than eating out once a week, or lower? It's up to you. If you like that and you say, you know what, I don't mind working 5 more years or however long it is, go for it. But make sure you do it consciously, right? Don't have a leaky bucket, as I like to say. So you've gone through, let's assume you've got your spending under your income. So you have a surplus. So using that difference, you plan that into your budget. Now, first and foremost, to clear all your debt. Why? And people will say, oh, debt's okay. That's not a problem. And I mean non-mortgage debt. You want to clear your mortgage eventually, but consumer debt, any of those things. If you're wondering why, I have a recording. I think it was the end of August 22nd or somewhere in there, the last one of August, why debt is dumb. Or that was credit cards, the earlier one, August 11th, I think, or 8th. It was is the hope section there. Look at that. There's 5 ways that debt impacts you, and you really want to take a look, because debt, at its heart, when you're in debt, you are subject to someone else, the lender. Banks don't call their debts because they want to get as much interest from you as they can, but they have every right, almost every loan agreement, to say, I want my money now. And if you can't come up with that money, whether it's a car, your house, whatever it is, they can take it, right? So you want to use debt sparingly and wisely. And so first off, when you're planning, if you have a surplus, you want to tackle that debt. It chokes out your future too. You aren't saving that for the future and somebody else's interest. Once you've cleared your debt, other than your mortgage, then plan an emergency fund, because your child can drop an apple down a vent. So you need to have some spare money that, in case it happens, or the unexpected, maybe the furnace breaks, you need that money, because otherwise you're going to end up back in debt, and that's not ideal, right? So then once you've got 3 to 6 months, and if you check my YouTube channel, I have a week where I go through, just this week I went through using an emergency fund. So once you have that, then start planning. And that's where you can start saying, okay, retirement, at some point you're going to stop working. So look at setting some money aside there. If you want to retire earlier, as I mentioned, plan more. Do you want to pay off your home early? That's also positive. Your children's education, vacation, right? Do you take a vacation each year? Home repairs. Some of these should be one-time or regular items in your budget, but they're all, if there's not room in your budget, you can plan them in now at this point for your dreams. So your dreams are your dreams. So you need to sit down and with your partner, if you're in a relationship, and you need to align on those and then prioritize them as well. So you plan those dreams into your budget. And then those are part of your budget. So, right, now we're going to go through getting this set right. But in reality, when you have a good budget, day one of each month, that savings amount you should put to a separate account, and that's your retirement fund. That's your pay off the home. And if you're paying off the home, you can put it right to the home if your bank allows that. So you want to put it and take it away right away, because then you will hit your dreams, right? Now, when you're in the planning stage, point 3 is see how long it will take. So if I want to retire at 50, there's tools out there. I can't go through the whole tool at this time, but at some point, or reach out when we can chat, you can see how much money do I need to retire, right? And look at how much do I need to save each month. So if you're only saving 300 and you need to save 500 a month, maybe it'll take you an extra 6 years. Are you okay with that? If not, you optimize again. So you go back through your budget. Where can I cut? Where can I look? And again, remember, optimizing isn't always cutting expenses. It's how do I generate more income? And sometimes the order you do things can be the biggest advantage, right? So maybe you can pay off your home a bit earlier and stop paying interest on the mortgage, and then you drive that into your retirement fund, right? And so you scale it up quickly that way. So this takes a bit of time, but the whole concept here is get your spending under your earnings, plan that difference back into your long-term goals, and then based on that savings plan, see how long it will take. You would want to work with a financial advisor as well. If it's a long-term, if you just take the money and put it in and leave it there, you're not going to keep up with inflation. So you're gonna take a bit of risk, but in the long term, it will get you there, and you're in it for the long term. So time is your friend. Chat with me if you want about, like, I don't actually give investment advice as a financial coach, but I can help you, arm you with some questions to ask to make sure the financial advisor's looking and on your side, not trying to make their own commission or increase their commission if they work for a bank or anything like that. Okay, so in the quote here I have at the bottom is, in the long run, we only hit what we aim at, by Henry David Thoreau. So we can't possibly expect to be able to retire early or pay off our own home early if we don't design our budget and our plan to achieve that, right? It's just not going to happen. We're just hoping we'll have money left. But if you do the work and you design your budget so that you know you have surplus, and that surplus is driven to your goals, you will hit it. And I'm going to let you in on a bit of a secret, but to me, this is the secret sauce with budgeting. You can do your budget, but unless you actually tie your savings plan to your long-term goals, you're just doing an accounting exercise, right? And so that's where I come in with this, tracking your spending. So if we just put numbers on paper but don't change our behavior, it's an accounting exercise. And for me, optimizing your budget is changing your behavior. That being said, you're trying to optimize it initially. The first time, you still want to do it, but you're trying to do it looking into the future. What the step 7 does is, okay, so I set my budget. Let's say I set my budget right now for October, starting October 1st. I have my stake in the ground. I know this is my budget. I've looked at my 3 months of it spending. I've optimized it, looked at areas where I can find savings, and I've put my savings budget in for my long-term goals. Now you start going through October, right? And So we're tracking our spending, and this is really important up front because you want to make sure that you're tracking how you're spending. So let's say we get 1 week into October and 50% of my food budget has been used. So I have 3/4 of the month left and I only have 50% of my budget. What do I do? Right? So something was amiss. So either the budget was set wrong or you spent a lot. Maybe it was busy and you went out to eat. Maybe you loaded up on groceries. If you loaded up on groceries and you have 2 weeks in the freezer, then that's not so bad. But you got to think about it and think, what do I do? Right? Am I going to be okay? And that is where the behavior change comes in. That's where you start saying, okay, I've spent more. I need to adjust. Right? And what you do at the end of the month is look at, okay, so, and be real with yourself again. Remember step one, get real, be real. Don't change the budget because that's what you thought. So you missed the budget. So look at it and say, what happened? Was it a one-time item or was it systemic? So one time is an apple gets dropped in your vent. Now, you could argue I was planning to do the HVAC anyway, but maybe something broke that was a fluke. That's a one time. That's where your funds are there for, your emergency funds, those things. Systemic issues are, I plan for $600 worth of food and I've been spending $1,000 every month for the past 6 months. So I know I need to change that budget, right? So that's where you want to look at it. So you adjust the budget, and remember, when you adjust the budget, it's going to put pressure somewhere else. You want to be real, but it could mean you're adjusting your savings target, right? So your savings, step 6. You have to be real. That's the way you change behavior. You then are feeling the pain. If you're saying, I have to take out of my retirement fund because I'm spending more eating out, and that's where the behavior change. And trust me, this is an iterative process. Getting a budget is you got to do it each month for the first while for sure. I would say you want to do a touch point each month, even ongoing, because every month changes. But to get the habit, you want to do it on a monthly basis and you want to analyze it, because then you can see, and that's how you drive your behavior. And that's why I say do it all again. So you're looking probably 3 to 6 months to get your budget set and where you want it to be, and that it's working well. So just to recap, step 1. So this is the whole 7-step process. Step 1, get real. What are the stories you're telling yourself? Are you saying things like, oh, that's just a part of life, or, oh, I can't be successful, I'm just a small town kid, right? Things like that. And then when you want to start setting your budget, so step 2 is look at your expenses over the last 3 to 6 months, take an average. That gives you a starting point. Step 3, look for one-time or irregular expenses. Things like if you plan a regular vacation, home repairs, property taxes, if you pay them quarterly or annually, things like that. Set your after-tax income. So after you've done your expenses, set your income level. And remember, there's 3 groups: regular, irregular, and secondary or side hustles, is the new lingo. Step 5, optimize, optimize, optimize. So as I just went over earlier tonight, look at your budget, look where you're spending, and be real, right? Be real about what you can and can't achieve. Look for areas where you're, quote unquote, wasting money. Look for areas where you can cut and drive savings. First of all, to get your spending under your income, but second of all, to drive more velocity in your savings. And that's step 6. Link your savings plan to your budget. So set up your savings targets, look at the timing. If you're okay with that, great. If it's taking too long, you go back to step 5 and look for ways you can optimize. And step 7, track your expenses. So look at your spending against your budget after the month, well, throughout the month, but especially at the end of the month, and identify your variances as either one time which could just be a fluke and you manage it through your emergency fund, or ongoing, in which case you probably need to adjust your budget, and that may put you right back to step 5. And I would challenge you, if it is ongoing, think about step 1 again, for you being real in the first place. Sometimes we just make mistakes and it's iterative, so don't be too hard on yourself, but do take a little look to be like, yeah, maybe I was shying away from the reality of what that actually is, because the reality is how you drive your behavioral change. Okay, so that's it for tonight's Hope session. We'll have another one in October, so they're the second and fourth Thursday of each month. You can register down with that URL below. And once again, those are ways you can contact me. So I'm going to pause the recording for now. And if there's any questions, we can certainly go over them and look for ways to optimize your budget. Or if there's any questions about the whole 7-step process, I'm here. So I hope you had a good one. And yeah, so we'll open the floor up now.